Part 3 of our read along. Where were we? Okay, motion in limine number 5 to preclude evidence and argument related to pretrial filings and the court's rulings. The parties have engaged in extensive pretrial litigation during the pendency of this action. Evidence and argument related to these pretrial proceedings, including the court's rulings, orders, and on the record statements at pretrial hearings, should be excluded. Okay, A. The court should preclude all reference to sanctions motions and the court's rulings on those motions. I love this for her. Hopefully it's granted, we'll see. The court should preclude evidence and references to sanctions motions against defendants and or their counsel in the court's rulings on such motions. And they give an example like the court precluded evidence relating to its previous decisions in the case, including sanctions motions, which culminated in sanctions against UBS as irrelevant and unfairly prejudicial. And in that example, it was granted, the motion was granted. Look, there has been no shortage of motions by Lively seeking sanctions and other remedies against defendants and their counsel during this litigation. Plaintiff has also exploited every opportunity to assault and undermine the credibility of defendants and their counsel. Evidence of counsel's litigation conduct and motions addressing alleged transgressions bear no relevance to the merits in Lively's claim of retaliation and would serve no purpose but to undermine the credibility of defendants' counsel and prejudice the jury against defendants. See Federal Rules of Evidence 401, 402, 403. The court will grant or deny sanctions motions and impose such remedies as it deems proper to cure and prevent future infractions, including the exclusion of evidence or monetary sanctions as the court deems warranted, including evidentiary or preclusion sanctions sufficient to cure any prejudice to the opposing party. In other words, should the court find any sanctionable violation, it should be addressed and cured prior to trial. Finally, whether defendants engaged in sanctionable conduct prior to trial would constitute impermissible character evidence under Rule 404. Indeed, evidence under evidence relating to alleged ethical or other violations falls within the scope of inadmissible character evidence under Rule 404 as it impugns the integrity and credibility of the defendants and their legal representatives. Hence, whatever the fate of any particular motion, the court should preclude evidence of plaintiff's serial motions about defendants' alleged transgressions in the litigation pursuant to Rules 401, 402, 403, and 404. Oh, yeah. Look at this one. Look at this one. The court should exclude all references to the Wayfarer complaint and its dismissal. Yes. How does Lively like to boast about that dismissal? It was premature, in my opinion. The court should exclude all references to the Wayfarer complaint and its dismissal. On January 16, 2025, the Wayfarer parties filed a complaint against plaintiff and other parties affiliated with plaintiff, captioned Wayfarer Studios LLC et al. Versus Lively et al., which was subsequently consolidated with this case. On June 9, 2025, the court entered an order dismissing the Wayfarer complaint. Courts routinely hold that previously dismissed claims and evidence of such claims should be excluded on relevance grounds, as well as the potential prejudice and juror confusion that might result. And then there's just like a lot of examples listed where it's saying that like dismissed claims and evidence could prejudice the current case. The Wayfarer complaint and its dismissal are irrelevant to proving plaintiff's remaining claims, which arise from an allegedly retaliatory digital campaign launched in August 2024. Simply put, any probative value of evidence relating to Wayfarer's dismissed complaint is substantially outweighed by the potential prejudice to defendants. Accordingly, the court should exclude any evidence, argument, or suggestions relating to the dismissed Wayfarer complaint. The court should preclude all references to proceedings involving pretrial publicity and the sealing of evidence. There have been multiple filings, hearings, and orders relating to the restrictions on pretrial publicity and the sealing of relevant evidence. Such proceedings, orders, and the court's on The record statements are irrelevant to any fact at issue in this case. However, evidence of proceedings involving potential restrictions on pretrial evidence, including without limitation plaintiffs' repeated attacks on defendants' ability to publicly defend against Ms. Lively's claim, would threaten to prejudice the jury and may well mislead the jury into believing that post-litigation pretrial publicity is a proper basis for calculating plaintiff's damages. Oh, I see what they're doing here. Okay, okay. Since the probative value of proceedings involving pretrial publicity itself is far outweighed by potential prejudice, any reference to court proceedings involving pretrial publicity and sealing should be precluded. Motion in limine number 6 to preclude references to other lawsuits involving defendants, the dismissed defendants, or their counsel. Yes, stop this BS about what is it? Rebel Wilson? Like, stop. Alexa Nicholas, stop. And here they give some examples. Courts generally exclude evidence of other related lawsuits. And then there are several examples here. For example, in Foster versus Berwyn Corporation, it says excluding evidence of other lawsuits because the complaints in these other actions are just that, allegations, and are dispositive of nothing and would confuse the complex issues already present. Such evidence is excluded because the probative value of the existence of other lawsuits typically is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice. And then A, the court should preclude evidence and argument related to other employment-related actions against defendants. Oh, yeah. The court also should apply the general rule to preclude references to dismissed or pending employment-related lawsuits against Wayfarer, included without limitation a dismissed lawsuit by former film editor alleging age discrimination claims, an allegation absent from Lively's claims, at December 2020, approximately 3 years before filming began for It Ends With Us, claim for a breach of contract and wrongful termination by Shane Norman, an employee of non-party non-party Wayfarer Entertainment LLC, Norman versus Wayfarer Studios LLC et al., California Superior Court case number blah blah blah, which was dismissed by a California state court on or about September 10, 2021. And Celeste C. Smith versus Wayfarer Foundation, Wayfarer Pathways, and Steve Sarwood's case number blah blah blah. Yeah, like, dude, come on. Involving claims for age, religion, gender, and race discrimination by a former program director who was not promoted by non-party Wayfarer entities. I remember that. I had completely forgotten about that. Lively does not assert claims for age discrimination, wrongful termination, or religion, gender, and race discrimination, and the cited lawsuits involve different parties, different facts, different forums, and different legal standards. In contrast to the slight probative value of the other lawsuits, the potential prejudice is substantial. For instance, among other things, evidence related to the other employment-related claims might well mislead and confuse the jury by suggesting that mistreatment of employees is pervasive. The implication that Wayfarer management has a propensity for unfair treatment of employees threatens to taint the jury and unfairly prejudice the Wayfarer parties. Further, allegations of other wrongful conduct by Wayfarer supervisors Baldoni and Heath are precisely the kind of character evidence subject to exclusion under Rule 404. Rule 404 prohibits plaintiff from introducing the failed lawsuit to show that individual defendants such as Baldoni or Heath engaged in other wrongful employment actions and therefore acted in conformity with the conduct alleged by Ms. Lively. And there's another example, Smith versus Frickle or Frick. I don't know, Freaky. I don't know. Plaintiff seeks to offer the lawsuits for one purpose: to show that when defendant engaged in conduct with plaintiff, defendant acted in conformity with his past practice. Such a purpose is impermissible. A plaintiff's character is not an essential element of any claim or defense in an employment discrimination case. Follow for Part 4.